How do we implement data center segmentation for sales and marketing growth? How do we implement data center segmentation for sales and marketing growth? So, the first decision that you're going to make on how to approach segmentation for sales and marketing growth is we need to be aware of what kind of resources you can put into your segmentation. In other words, are there hundreds of people on your go to market team, or are there just a few or somewhere in between? In other words, if you work for a publicly traded REIT or a large publicly traded technology or facilities company that sells into the data center ecosystem, your segmentation is going to be way more specific, more subtly nuanced, more finely tuned than if you are from a mid-market company or a small to medium-sized business, a scale-up or startup in and around the data center ecosystem. I'm going to answer this as if you're somewhere in the middle, where you're a large, small business and you're aware that a lot of your messaging is falling flat. And because of that, your prospects and clients are ignoring you. And you've heard that segmentation and personalization is the way to grab people by the virtual shirt collar and pull them into your world, pull them into your ecosystem, into your sales funnel, into their buyer's journey to intersect with your approach to helping to educate and build trust and guide them through their buyer's journey. So when it comes to implementing data center segmentation for sales and marketing growth, there's two basic kinds of segmentation that I'd encourage you to think about: who they are and where they are. Let's talk first about who they are. When it comes to segmenting, if you think about going to someone's website and you look at their website navigation, either the top navigation or the bottom navigation, there's a really good chance you're going to see some pages about who we help, perhaps solutions or some other kind of synonym. And within there, it's typically going to give you a window into that company's segmentation strategy. And in some cases, this is also manifested by boxes or buttons that you'll see on a homepage. But at the end of the day, companies sometimes segment by a certain kind of industry, like that they sell to manufacturing companies and telecommunications companies and healthcare companies. So you may see those three options under a Who We Help menu on a website homepage. You may also see boxes on a website homepage that are showing that that's for sure part of that particular company's segmentation strategy. So they're segmenting by industry or vertical. The second way that people also can segment on a Who We Are is segmenting by job role. In other words, perhaps you sell to ESG or CTO or CFO kind of leaders. So those three kinds of categories of leaders can often have very different goals that they're working on professionally, whether it's environmental sustainability, finance, or technology. So they'll have different goals or have different challenges as a result. Each of them usually deserves a separate page on the website and a separate lead generation offer, or a separate webinar, a separate kind of decision stage offer, and in some cases, even a different kind of account executive or sales development rep that's highly trained on what that particular stakeholder at that particular kind of company is working on at the intersection with how you would help them. So this is segmenting based on who they are, and it's usually the who is based on what kind of company they are from and what kind of job role they have within that company. So at a high level, you could call this like segmenting by the intersection of ideal client profile, ICP, and buyer persona. So that's the who. The where they are in the journey listens and is contextually relevant for not only who they are, but where they are in their active research process between having a goal or a challenge or trying to figure out an actual purchase decision. At the risk of really oversimplifying, but a really good 1.0 version for a lot of people watching or listening to this, there's the awareness stage, the consideration stage, and the decision stage of the buyer's journey, these three stages. During the awareness stage of the buyer's journey, your particular buyer persona has a goal that they're trying to do for their job that helps them get their job performance, their team's performance, and their company to the next level. You figure out these goals in your buyer persona research, and they're frequently even showing up in a job description. For sure, these are the kinds of goals, objectives and key results, key performance indicators, metrics, and dashboards that people are graded on that often determine whether they get promoted and whether they get bonuses, or in the case of sales compensation, commissions, and all the other things that go along with that. So there are individual people, and there's individual stages of the journey that they go through. These stages that they go through: awareness, consideration, and decision. So there's goals they're working on, and then there's often challenges that are frustrating the heck out of them. These are the things that are stressing them out, that are causing them to have to work crazy hours, crazy overtime under incredibly stressful, adverse conditions. These are the things that cause them to have to make compromises on their family vacations, where they literally don't feel like they're on vacation because they're constantly getting nagged by their job. These are the things that are causing them to chug Pepto-Bismol and they get all stressed out, stress eating, whatever it is, and have to deal with all of these things. So those are the goals and the challenges. And early on in the buyer's journey, in the awareness stage, they know they have a goal that they're trying to figure out. They know they have a challenge that they're trying to address, but they really don't know much more than that. So your goal with your segmentation is to make sure that you have content and events that allow you to show up for a particular buyer persona in a certain kind of company and address some of their biggest goals and challenges in the awareness stage. In the consideration stage, they've started to give the solution category a name. But in the consideration stage, in the middle of the buyer's journey, in the middle of the sales cycle, they don't yet have companies in mind. They just know there's a category there. And during this stage, whereas like blogs and ebooks and webinars and podcasts and videos can be super effective in the awareness stage, in the consideration stage, buyer's guides, comparison tools, also more in-depth webinars can be incredibly helpful to help frame the criteria in favor with what your company actually does. So the basic idea here is, if we understand that a typical journey goes through those three distinct stages: awareness, consideration, and decision, and there may be as many as 28 touch points between an initial goal or a challenge and ultimate purchase decision, our goal is for our company to show up in as many of those 28 touch points as possible. In the middle of the journey, they're trying to figure out what this is actually called and the pros and cons of different approaches. After they've progressed from consideration to decision, they now have specific companies in mind. And this is where they start to be open to looking at products and services and product marketing materials. And most companies in and around the data center ecosystem that are doing digital marketing the same way they did 10 years ago tend to get at least a passing grade at the decision stage, but many are completely missing in action when it comes to the awareness and the consideration stage. So at a very high level, when it comes to your segmentation, think about who they are and where they are. The who they are is defined by usually the intersection of your ideal client profile and a specific buyer persona. And the where they are is whether they're in awareness, consideration, or decision. So, for example, if you have three different kinds of buyer personas, let's say you sell to an ESG leader, a CTO, and a CFO. You have three different kinds of buyer personas, and there's three stages of the buyer's journey. So you end up with like a 3x3 matrix. There's 9 boxes that need to be filled. It kind of looks like the Brady Bunch or a tic-tac-toe board. And the better job you can do with making sure that you have educational lead generation content that educates and builds trust at the intersection of a specific person, a who, and a where, with where they are in the buyer's journey, the better job you're going to do with using the segmentation and the personalization effectively to show up in the right places at the right time for the right people, and most of all, in the right context. And the context is so important. We need to understand that in the self-propelled buyer's journey, no one needs you to read the website to them anymore. There's just so many other ways that people are navigating the journey. And this is a big part of the reason why your decision makers, your decision committee are more sales allergic than ever. So in order for us to be able to add value, we need to show up as experts, not as transaction focused salespeople who are just trying to close them or just trying to get a deal on the board or obsessed with booking a meeting. We need to make conditions possible so our best prospects and clients actually want to spend time with members of your team. So it doesn't feel like you're always having to chase and beg and cajole and manipulate them into taking these meetings. This is where the event marketing budgets, by the way, get completely out of control because we're completely ignoring their preferences for so long that it goes from being a proactive opportunity to being a desperation opportunity. Don't put yourself in that situation where you're coming in reeking of desperation with all this. We need to get in early, we need to get in often, and we need to be there repeatedly. So our company is involved in so many of those 28 touch points that there no longer are gaps or opportunities for competitive forces to step in because they're learning everything that they need to go through their full buyer's journey from members of your team. It's not going to happen overnight, but this is the future of data center sales and marketing and growth within the data center industry. And in most cases, it's going to require a cultural change coming from the top down, where someone like in the C-suite says, okay, this is it. We need to be seen as the go-to experts in our space when it comes to anything and everything having to do with our niche within the data center ecosystem.